Adam, if industrial design was a dangerous pool toy, you would be the neon pink inflatable with palm tree sunshade and flamingo cup holder.
It is safe and stylish. Welcome to Engineer vs. Designer,
The podcast.
For designers,
engineers,
makers, bakers, and people who connect makers to buyers and buyers to makers. I'm Adam.
And I'm Josh. This week, CustomMade.com. Speaking with the guys behind the matchmaking website for makers and buyers, Mike Salguero, CEO, and CTO Jim Haughwout.
Speaking of all things custom-made, Josh, turn our raw chunk of aluminum ignorance on the mind-altering lathe of knowledge. What have you got for us this week?
Yes, this episode of Engineer vs. Designer is brought to you by Autodesk Fusion 360. CAD in the cloud is real, and it's here. Get a free 90-day trial today at fusion360.autodesk.com. So, we've done it before. We're doing it again. A tweet for this episode has gone out. Anyone who retweets that message will be entered into a drawing for a coveted Engineer vs. Designer t-shirt.
Spread the love, people.
Yep, interview time. Let's go.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. You are the founders of CustomMade. We got to get your plug in right off the bat. What is CustomMade, and who's it for?
So CustomMade is an online marketplace that connects makers, people that make things custom, so jewelry, custom furniture, custom bobbleheads, a whole bunch of custom stuff, with customers who want to buy custom and don't know who to go to. So we help the customer describe what they're looking for and then help them find the perfect maker for them for their project.
So now that we understand that, what is your background first, Mike, and how did CustomMade come to be?
So my background, let's see. So I was born in South America. I grew up in Massachusetts. I was always an entrepreneur. Had a couple of really small businesses when I was growing up as a kid, and really loved custom stuff. So I had custom shirts and custom belts and custom suits, and eventually stumbled across this website, CustomMade.com, which was connecting at the time woodworkers with customers. And we approached the owner in 2009 and asked him if he would sell it to us, and he did. So we started building out a marketplace that connected all different types of makers who make things custom with the customers. So it really came from a need that I had, which was I really loved custom stuff, but I didn't know who to go to get it. And we've been building on that ever since.
But it started before that, correct? I mean, you started way back in...
Yeah, it started by a woodworker named Ted Wheatonkraus, who was located in Ashby, Massachusetts. And the story goes, he built the site. He was at a cabinet makers co-op and was sharing tools with other cabinet makers and showed them this website he had created on the weekend. And everyone loved it and asked if he could list their stuff on there as well. So it just started as this really small kind of cottage thing, and we're now trying to take it to the masses.
That is cool. And Jim, how did you get involved with CustomMade?
So I joined a little over 6 months ago to lead technology. My background is originally an aerospace engineer, educated down the road at MIT. The driving kind of force in everything I've done is I love creating technology that lets you do things you could never do before, that makes how you work or how you live better, easier, more enjoyable. Career started in aerospace, then internet to the .com days, and later on to social media. And I met Mike and Seth back in the fall. And when I heard about what CustomMade did, I immediately loved it. If you go to my house, while I've been involved in high tech, it's filled with old woodworking, artwork, custom clothing. I love old world craftsmanship, and I love new tech, and there's a chance to let people get anything they can imagine and give power to artisans to reach more people and to do more and change, which is very compelling.
It is very compelling. And what I think is interesting about this is there are so many different facets of life that you guys are touching. I mean, people have an attraction to handmade goods. I think the idea of I'm putting the word authenticity in air quotes because it's a tricky word to hammer down. But I think there's something really fundamentally attractive about that to people. But you guys are also, really connecting people. on a person to person level in a way that's kind of I think seeing a renaissance right now. We've gone through a whole generation where we've gotten less and less connected to each other in some ways, despite connectedness. And I feel like part of what you guys are doing is giving people real and meaningful physical relationships in a new way. What do you think about that?
I agree with that. I think the last time, I think a renaissance is a pretty good word. The last time that a movement like this was done was in the early 1900s when, the arts and crafts movement was really enabling the customer to stop buying mass-produced stuff and to move into buying direct from the craftsperson. And now 100 years later, we're seeing the same thing, that technology has finally empowered the customer to be able to get whatever they want, but also to have a relationship with both the maker and the product itself, which is brand new. You don't get that kind of relationship by walking into a jewelry store and buying something, or walking into a big box furniture store and pointing out a coffee table and putting it in your car. And that relationship between the maker and the customer is really what we're trying to leverage and inspire more customers to try for the first time.
Now, you have just an incredible variety of makers and products. You mentioned a few. You've got furniture, jewelry. What I really like is that you can search or find what you're looking for by either describing your idea or uploading a photo. The interface is just phenomenal as well. So wondering what types of products are the most popular on CustomMade?
The two best products are the two or three tables. So that's conference tables, dining room tables, and coffee tables. And then necklaces. So pendant necklaces, or a charm on a necklace. Soon after that is engagement rings. We seem to do really well with the men looking for something really unique. We've had a bunch of really interesting engagement rings, like one that kind of looked like R2-D2, one that was modeled after something in Harry Potter. So if you have this like story you want to capture in an engagement ring, we do a really good job on that one as well.
I mean, and you guys, there's a curation process involved here, right? You definitely aren't just letting anybody come on and say that they're a craftsman. What's that process like? How do you vet people to become makers on your site?
Yeah, so we have a 10-step verification process that we go through. So that's everything from looking at their Better Business Bureau, criminal background, if there are any kind of reviews on them online, so Yelp or other places. And then we look through their portfolio to make sure that their work matches with needs that we have in the market. And then also we're always looking for what the customer is looking for. So a few months ago, we saw a lot of customers looking for walking sticks. I don't know why, maybe like beginning of the summer. So we went out and looked for people who made walking sticks, tried to find the best possible makers, and brought them into our system.
Oh, that's cool. So you actually go out and seek
that
out
is so cool.
makers to join in too.
And I'm sure that's amazing. And you I just can't imagine you don't have just incredible stories, just so many of them, not just the ones that you publish, but there have to be so many as well. And you guys have great videos on the site too. We love those. What are some of your favorite stories about both the makers and the purchasers and the kind of the interaction between them?
Trying to think of the R2-D2 story Mike's already mentioned is a tremendously interesting one where it was a couple that were interested in science fiction. It was a common theme together. The boyfriend, or at the time, had a engagement ring made that's like beautifully engineered. If you look at the pictures, in terms of looking like R2-D2, but also looking like a ring. Then wound up, getting that lots of interaction back and forth. Had that made, videotaped him proposing, shared that, which was wonderful. From that perspective, and then they later came back, and now we have wedding bands that are made from that as well.
Yep.
And that's that serves people who like sci-fi, and you can do other things. It's just, imagine that being such a personal part of your life, and being able to enable that where there's no way anywhere either going to an online website or walking down the street to the mall could ever have that need met.
I was wondering, you mentioned this engagement ring. Have there been any marriages between like someone seeking a product and a maker from these people meeting online?
I don't think so. Maybe.
No, not yet.
Not yet. I was going to say that one of the things that really excites us here, staff, as we collect stories and experiences of makers, is really the maker side. What's really neat is empowering these makers to be able to compete in a brand new way and to bring business to their doorstep for the first time. So we have guys and gals who have doubled the size of their shop, who have hired people to help them with winning more jobs and actually producing those products. So there are tons of stories of makers who are able to make the decision to make this a full-time endeavor because of our site and what we do. And that's really cool. I mean, it's a big responsibility as well, but it's pretty neat.
And it's great.
It's kind of a binding theme. If you look, product managers or designers or operations team or engineers, you see people that they like creating things, they like doing things themselves. They view, we're watching and learning the makers in action, and even our engineering team has a motto that we code for those who create. And we view as, we are building the technology to enable people who create amazing things to do more, to reach more people, to just enrich their entire creation experience.
Now, you've been around a while, you said since 96, online only a short time, and you just got a huge round of funding. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe some things you never expected to happen that has happened with the growth of CustomMade? Sure.
So, yeah, we've definitely been around for a long time. If you look at the old owner, having started this in 1996, we're basically one of the oldest e-commerce companies out there, which is interesting. Obviously, new ownership has owned it for less time. We did take a big round of funding, and I think what has been the most compelling for me, or the most unexpected, is how many other people actually think like I do that custom can overtake a typical retail experience. I think 4 years ago when we started CustomMade, it actually wasn't so apparent that the world was moving into a direction of craftsmanship and small batch and farm to table, and that's really become apparent in the past 4 or 5 years. So we just went after something that we really enjoyed, my co-founder and I, and now 4 or 5 years later, it seems like the entire world is moving towards this idea of having more of a connection with the things that you're consuming and having a connection with the person who's making it. And it's just been interesting to see the market open up for us.
Absolutely. It has been a really interesting thing to watch, especially for somebody like Josh or I who've been making manufactured products for a long time, and to see that transition is kind of interesting. As I think about, you mentioned the arts and crafts movement, generally associated with William Morris in the late Victorian era, talking about the late 1800s, and then kind of bleeds into the early 1900s, like you said. But ultimately, it didn't go very far. William Morris wanted to kind of defeat a lot of what he saw about ugly industrialism and the kind of the homogenization that goes along with it. But in the process, he kind of discovered that really all they could make was fancy stuff for rich people, because it's just too expensive to make things one by one. It just economically didn't work out very well. And so they made a lot of tables and a lot of jewelry. That seemed chairs, tables, jewelry. That was kind of what they did. Now, I mean, we're talking about this as if we're in the midst of a big transition here, but could you defend the position that this isn't just a trend? That maybe this is a long-term change in the consumer psyche?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is you could probably say something similar about the food movement in the past 50 years. Everything used to be direct from the farm, and we've certainly seen recently that even a place like Whole Foods, where organic was completely inaccessible and only for rich people or people that were super anal about what they were eating, Now organic food is seen at Walmart. So what is that? People have basically two things have happened. One, technology has empowered the producer to be able to make it for cheaper. So that's certainly happened in the furniture and jewelry world, where CAD and rendering and laser cutting and wax modeling and all that stuff has empowered the artist to be able to move faster. Therefore, they can get some efficiencies there. It's also enabled the customer to know who to go to. So a lot of the spend for artisans before a site like CustomMade came around was actually in marketing, where they would spend thousands of dollars putting up ads, marketing themselves to little or no it didn't really work. It didn't bring in the customers that they thought it would. Our site has a bit of a different model where we say, you know what, artist, maker, don't bother paying us until we bring you work. Once we bring you work, we want to be paid, but until then, don't bother paying us. I do think it's interesting what you're saying, though, that what we need to do as a company is make sure that we're not just serving the high end of the market, the 1%. And that's something that we grapple with every day, that Jim and I sit around and talk about. How are we going to make custom accessible to the masses, and how do you do that in a way that both empowers the artist as well as the customer? And stuff like, for example, which could never be done in the arts and crafts movement days, where if a customer and a maker decide upon a design that they really like, that maker can then potentially offer that design to other customers, and other customers can glom onto that same product. So that R2D2 ring, derivations of that R2D2 ring have been sold probably 15 times by the same maker.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
it's like they're co-creating with one person, but then that design base is being used over and over and over and over. That could become a bigger part of our business. But right now, it's an area that we're really interested in continuing to explore.
And by the way, I mean, first of all, it's a fantastic answer. I mean, and I wanted to go on the record and say, actually, just personally, not that my opinion matters much, but I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing. I mean, I saw the video from a few weeks ago and just thought it was the coolest thing. I sent it to my wife and my friends. I just thought it was fantastic. So I'm definitely not trying to, burst any
Maybe
balloons here.
bit.
I just, these questions are, I mean, these are just the questions that came into my mind, just when I see it, I'm like, that is so cool. How does that become sustainable? I mean, how can that be sustainable,
It makes sense with you connect one, and then all of a sudden through the site, you're connecting, tens, hundreds, thousands more to lower the price of the product. So makes absolute complete sense. And I picture your houses, or at the very least, the office, filled with some incredible handmade goods that you've either been given by makers who are appreciative of what you're doing, or ones that you've bought yourself. What are some of the products that you guys love on the side or have personally bought?
So I'll do two things. Basically, being relatively new to CustomMade, I haven't done a huge amount of projects yet, but one of the makers two of the makers I really enjoy looking at the site is one is a guy named Mike Hill, who does work in iron. And I used to live in the countryside, and next time I do, I'm definitely going to get a lot of items that you could hang outside in outdoor settings, barn and the like. There's a maker, Tim Sway, who basically reclaims, or like he calls it recycling, like saving, what people would throw out and turns them into furniture, which is, just a kind of, you even watch the videos and his work. It's fantastic. It's funny, if you look in our workplace, in our engineering office, we have a custom-made table that we all sit around and we do collaboration and figuring out how to, what we're going to, how to solve a problem next, or give someone new features and functionality. And across the desk, you'll see a lot of these handmade little statues from arc welding, where the whole company went out and learned from a maker how to do high temperature arc welding, just to, kind of learn how to make. And we actually sponsor maker classes to connect engineers with makers.
Oh. Cool.
I have a few projects that I've done. Jewelry for my wife, a coffee table, which actually ended up here. I've done a few custom belts, some custom shirts. And then I also am a maker on the site. I make custom T-shirts for people. So I kind of do both sides.
Now, do you guys only allow makers who make physical things? I know this is kind of it might seem like a silly question, but what if somebody makes digital things? What what if somebody wanted to provide? I don't know. Is somebody one of the things that I often comment about with the 3D printing movement is that anybody can run a 3D printer, sure, but nobody can actually make anything in CAD because it's too hard.
Right.
What if you have people wanting to do services like that?
It's a really good question. It's not a dumb question. It's something that we have talked about and grappled with, but there is no good answer. So basically, everyone today is a physical good, but that doesn't mean that we can't in the future offer non-physical or more digital goods.
Well, I'm wondering what can we expect to see from CustomMade in say the next 5 years? You mentioned possibly digital goods. Are there other things that you can talk about that are coming up?
I think some of the stuff that Jim and his team are working on as far as matching customers and figuring out case graph and how that connects to an artisan are really interesting. So maybe he can talk a little bit about that, because I think that's pretty awesome stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things, if you look at the internet allowed you to find things from far away and find things that were not just in front of you, but there's and that's part of the way of sustaining the idea of artisans being able to compete and having this movement continue. But there's so much out there that what we're working on right now, the technology, is finding ways to understand what people like and what makers like to make and what matches their skill sets. And as our marketplace gets larger and larger, it's naturally going to be, basically you have more and more options to pick from. And what we're working towards is enabling you to essentially bring that list down to things that, based on what you like, what you've done, what you've seen, what you post about, here are makers that do things that are similar and that match that, either what you're looking at in terms of style, the item you're making, and then basically bringing those two together so then the human element can take over. It's not just a computer making a decision, but using the technology to basically make it easier to find people that you would then want to connect with and build that relationship with and co-create is one of the things that we're evolving continuously. And the second is just making it if you look at what's happening with mobile technology, you look at with computers, is being able to do that from anywhere seamlessly and easily, almost like you're texting back and forth with your friends. And then the maker becomes, he could be 2,000 miles away, but he could be just like a craftsman who's 3 blocks away that you walked down and visited yesterday. And as chat technology, text technology, search and matching technology gets better, we're looking to make that relationship more and more intimate.
Cool to think about. It is like a matchmaking service.
Yeah, and we also think about the days where the world becomes your inspiration. So it's not just that you have to explain, this is what I'm looking for custom and send it to somebody, but we ask questions like, well, what if we empowered your smartphone to be able to take a photo? So you're in a store and you're like, ooh, I really like this chair, but I want it a little bit taller and made out of a different type of wood. And actually, I kind of want it to look like this table over here. We can actually empower that type of purchasing, which has never been done before.
Or this is my Pinterest board of amazing coffee tables that I love.
Yep, and based on that, Here are people who are best for you, or if you've ever been to like a fantastic with some like great table and like, wow, I wish I had this at home. Take the picture, share, and get it made in a slightly different scale and maybe a little bit different texture to fit your kitchen.
So is this, in your minds, is there no limit to the scalability of this platform? I mean, in other words, is there a point at which it's so big that it loses some of its power, or does it only get more powerful the bigger it becomes, and you just kind of see this as becoming the one-stop shop for anything that you want to have made?
Well, the reality is that the custom world is much bigger than anyone thinks or gives credit to. Most people I talk to are like, oh, that sounds really small. Custom woodworking in the United States is a $27 billion industry. Custom jewelry, there are 40,000 independent jewelers in the United States. They all do custom now. So it's a massive industry and it's growing, which makes it really exciting. And we think it is limitless. If you think about there's 40,000 independent jewelers. There's about 350,000 woodworkers in the United States. All do custom. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who are looking for this type of work. And all we're doing is just making the connections between really talented artisans who can really make an awesome product for the consumer, and then consumers who are looking for it. The more matches we can make, the more networks or the more nodes in our network, and the more the word gets out about what we're doing. So, yeah, we think that the sky's the limit for how big we could actually get and how many people we could actually convince to try custom for the first time.
And as we get bigger, we have more data to learn from, more options to offer people who want to buy things, more customers to extend to makers. And the trick is basically leveraging technology, understanding people's tastes and understanding, what they like to do to basically narrow that down to a more intimate set of matches. So essentially bringing people together into a smaller setting from that big community. And that's the trick to, as you get bigger, making it a richer experience instead of making it an overwhelming experience. Yeah.
Now, I imagine putting together this was no small feat in a variety of ways. I can think of all kinds of things that would be really difficult about what you guys have accomplished so far and are continuing to try to do more and better. What would you say is one of the biggest challenges you've faced so far? What's the hardest thing about putting together CustomMade?
So most people, when they talk about building a marketplace or a two-sided marketplace, talk about the chicken and egg problem, meaning if you have suppliers, where are the customers? And if you have customers, where are the suppliers? Because we purchased a website that had been around for so long and already had ingrained supplier and customer base, we kind of skipped that one. So that was fortunate that we were able to skip that marketplace chicken and egg problem. Nice. The biggest issue that we continue to grapple with is helping customers to describe what they're looking for in a way that doesn't feel really intimidating to them. Very creative people, so certainly the people who are listening to this show, very creative people can draw out or describe in good detail the project that they want to have made. But an average customer has a really hard time doing that. And if we want to target both, we need to build an experience that works for both audiences, and that continues to be a challenge. Also, just making sure that we're not wasting makers' time. So not every customer who says this is the project I'm looking for actually ends up converting. So we want to make sure that we're leveraging the maker's time and making sure it's as efficient as possible for them, so that we're, the more time they're away from making, the less money they can make, and the more painful their work is for them. They really just want to make stuff. So we're trying to empower that. Now,
and you guys are acting as an escrow between the maker and the buyer, right?
We are not currently, but we're launching that functionality in about a month and a half. So currently, the customer pays the maker directly, and we've just heard from a lot of customers that is not ideal. So we're changing our ways to have the money flow through us, and then we can protect the customer and stuff like that.
And will that be a mandatory change, or will people still be able to deal offline if they want to?
No, it'll be mandatory.
All right. So, and because part of that is you take a percentage of the cost of the product, right? That's the way it's set up now. Instead of, it used to be a subscription service, correct?
Yep, it used to be a subscription. We now charge a 10% fee to the maker. So if they win a project, we charge.
Okay. And then when they get paid, or you get paid.
Right. Correct. Yeah, that's the whole. So changing it so the payment goes through us will enable us to, for one, know if a maker is late on their project. Mm-hmm. Two, we can start adding more value to the maker. So, for example, we can potentially loan them money. We can loan the customer money. We can give maker credits for stuff. And we can also make sure that we protect the customer a little bit better than we can today.
That is really impressive stuff. Mike and Jim, having you on the show today was even better than that time I spent an entire day in my lawn chair watching Josh figure out how to Dremel his way out of a wet paper bag. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Sure.
So good.
Well, that's a done deal. My next table, Josh, is probably going to be custom made.
Yeah, you think?
Having Mike and Jim on the show was even more fun than that time you got your face stuck in the shop vac before.
Yeah, I still have no feeling on the left side of my face. Please address ice packs and nerve endings to Josh at EVD.
And if you'd like to send us custom-made nerve-ending accessories, please address those to Josh as well. Let us know what you think, who you want to see on the show, and what your favorite shop tool is at EngineerVsDesigner.com or on the EVD YouTube and or Vimeo channel.
We've only done that a million times. And
It's a little different.
if you'd like to see us hammer our own thumbs into pulpy nubs, be sure to like us. +1 us, tweet us, or whatever else as social media has been correlated with self-inflicted pain and torture.
This show was edited by the masterful Simon Martin. If you love our taste in music and need some more to help propel you through the work week, be sure to check out a new playlist on Solid Smack Radio every Tuesday at solidsmack.com.
We'll see you next week, and without engineers, designers would sit for days conceptualizing proper style for water balloon launchers.
And without designers, engineers would not conceptualize anything and just slap each other in the face all day with water balloons. Actually, that sounds pretty good. I wouldn't mind if that was. I like water balloons. Who doesn't like water balloons?
A production of EVD Media.